An act of the will, an action, an interior action, is properly human. Only, animals can't make acts of the will. It's properly human. It's an interior action of self-expression, of decision, of resolution that changes us and our relationship with God. We can change ourselves by acts. Think of, for example, of the marriage vow. Just by saying 2 words, someone's life changes. It changes something very real about themselves. This is an act of the will that transforms us. Now we know, we have prayers like this in our Catholic tradition that give us a hint as to what the content of these are. We have acts of faith, acts of hope, acts of love, acts of contrition, acts of self-offering. And there's a beautiful act of self-offering that we'll pray at the end of this talk, and it's at the end of the exercises of the Suscipe of St. Ignatius. But these change things. The act of saying, I believe, changes something about yourself and your relationship with God. The act of saying to God and meaning it, I love you, changes something about you and your relationship with God. And so the fruit of your prayers is so, in the meditation we just briefly went over about the first sin of Adam and Eve. How much I've been spared by God, despite all my many sins. So I respond to Him with acts of contrition, with acts of love, with acts of resolution to sin no more. And those are great, great fruits of prayer. And so always end your prayers with acts of the will as you are inspired to make them. It's part of the call. Something that you're doing directly with the Lord. I want to talk about just really quickly here this classic colloquy of the spiritual exercises. It's on your sheets, your handouts. Look at it. Look at it later. Because I want to talk about Ignatian Contemplation. How much time do I have? How are we doing? 5 minutes, okay. Ignatian Contemplation. So, this is what the talk was advertised as. So we're finally getting to it after an hour. Huh? So, the use of the imagination to pray. Okay? Meditation tends to be used, although it might not have been the best example, with more abstract topics. Sin of Adam and Eve really isn't that abstract. But one of the other proposed ones in that first week is, for example, a man who loses salvation because of a single mortal sin. Okay? So that's kind of like an abstract type of thing. But contemplation with the use of the imagination is often about concrete stories from the life of Christ and other biblical stories. And using the imagination to pray. Again, valuing strongly God's gift of ourselves. The imagination is a human power that is given to us by God. We are created with an imagination to know Him and to grow in His love and His service. And so we have the imagination in 3 steps. To see the mystery, to listen to what people say, and to watch what the people do. And then reflect on myself and my relation to the mystery, with the purpose, always, to gain some fruit or profit from the mystery. And Ignatius repeats this like a mantra. To gain some fruit or profit from the mystery. Now I want to say a little bit here about the use of the imagination. This is not some sort of scholarly exercise in getting to the historical truth of a biblical story. In fact, nothing could be further or in some ways more damaging to the free use of your imagination than a preoccupation with what might have actually been true. You're going to have all kinds of things that are going to shape your vision of a mystery that you're praying on, whether it's, that's, what's that? Fra Angelo. The Annunciation. So you've seen art. You've seen movies. You've seen Discovery Channel documentaries about the Holy Land. All these things are going on. It doesn't really matter how it fits together. Because the point is to draw some fruit or profit from those mysteries. And so the imagination helps you to enter into a more intimate and personal contact with them. And so that's what you try to do. Now, let's do an example here. This comes directly from the spiritual exercises. The contemplation on the Nativity, the birth of our Lord. So St. Ignatius gives this in 3 points. The first point will consist in seeing the persons, namely Our Lady, St. Joseph, the Maid, and the child Jesus after his birth. I will make myself a poor little unworthy slave, and as though present, look upon them, contemplate them, and serve them in their needs with all homage and reverence. And the mantra. Then I will reflect on myself that I may reap some fruit. But I really want to stress this. I will make myself a poor little unworthy slave. There's a real intrigue into this mystery here by the use of the imagination. So there I am at the Nativity. What does the Holy Family need? What can I do? You know, am I building a fire? Am I getting blankets? Am I just sitting there? Where am I sitting? Am I next to Mary? Am I next to Joseph? What's Joseph doing? What's Mary doing? What's the child doing? Can I hold the child? Using the imagination for this in order to enter into the mystery. This is not to have a mystical experience, a vision of this. You're using your imagination. It's your imagination. Okay? God grants you have a mystical experience where he takes over and gives you a real vision of it, but that's not what we're shooting for here, because we can't control that. But you can't control your imagination. It's a natural power that is given to you by God in order to know him and to love him and to serve him. And so you use that imagination to put yourself into a greater closeness of this mystery and to reap some fruit. And that's really what the purpose is. Second point is very similar. This time with the focus on hearing. To consider, observe, and contemplate what the persons are saying, and then to reflect on myself and draw some fruit from it. Then, the third point, to look at the actions. See and consider what they are doing. For example, making the journey and laboring that our Lord might be born in extreme poverty, and that after many labors, after hunger, thirst, heat, cold, insults, and outrages, he might die on the cross. And all this for me. Personal involvement and engagement in the story. Jesus didn't just do this. He did it for me. Then I will reflect and draw some spiritual fruit from what I see. So, the fruits of contemplation. Again, the imagination is a means to an end. The end is spiritual fruit and profit, and so you use it as a tool. When you discover communion with God, some aspect of this, you don't have to get through all 3 points. Or consider even the whole story. When you get to some point where you discover communion with God, where you discover his divine mysteries in a more deeper, profound way, when you come to some self-desire, when it awakens in you some holy desire, something that you want, when you get that spiritual fruit and profit, you just remain there. Ignatius was very clear about the flexibility of prayer. It's not an assignment, it's not something you have to get through. It's something that's speaking spiritual fruit and profit. Greater communion with the love of God, detachment from sin, knowledge of his ways and his will for you. I am going to stop there for our, well, wait. Are we going to have a little break, or do you want to just go straight into the questions?
We're going to have like a minute or two for people to reflect on.
Oh, okay. You were supposed to reflect.
Think about questions.
Okay, very good.